Are we all sure the book of science is done? No doubt about the amazing progress science has achieved for all of us in the last decades. But we are now happily living in a society highly dominated by science. But on a deeper level, the book of science is not complete at all. Many things remain unclear. Do you need to still rewrite pages? What is coming next for all of us if we unravel the pending mysteries of our reality? So what kind of a new world will emerge if we change a few foundations here and there?
I feel quite energised, actually, by the lack of results for the LHC. It feels good to me that everyone was wrong. It's when we're wrong that we start to make progress. There's a very real chance that we could just, start thinking about different ideas. And maybe if we just work harder and trying to understand this equation more, we'll find that there are other patterns that emerge. I think that maybe we should just go back to the drawing board and start to challenge some of the assumptions and paradigms that we've been holding for the past 30 years.
I do have to agree with him. Some of our most important pillars of our understanding could be wrong. Something bigger than we were expecting. A single error has the power to create a chain of effects and run until we reach an impossible, a singularity. Our actual science in many areas is full of these singularities. What old paradigms must be wrong? As you might know, at present we have gravity to explain the cosmos. And on one side, and on the other, quantum physics to explain the small. But they don't get together yet. Why is this? So follow me in this journey, and we will keep things as beautiful as they are. Of course, we have to get started with him, Isaac Newton. He really is the greatest. In mechanical physics, perfection. Initial force, trajectory, dropping. But he was asked why. Why things fall down. What kind of force makes things come down to Earth? Newton came up with the idea of gravity to explain why things fall down. So done? Is it over? Well, maybe to all of us, but not to him. Because Newton himself, the very best of all, considered that some things were never truly finished.
Gravity must be caused by an agent according to certain laws, but whether this agent be material or immaterial is a question I have left to the consideration of my readers.
Actually, if you think about it, it's still not clear. The mass, but only in big quantities, can pull down smaller things. I hope so. But by observation, nothing falls over another. We don't see particles attracted by big mountains or to my heavy mass. Newton, in his time, knew nothing about quantum mechanics. He will be very grateful today, and perhaps he will again give us the final solutions to these problems. There are indeed a great number of modern physicists proving Newton's gravity insufficient.
Newton thought of the Earth and Sun orbiting, but with a third mass like the Moon, motions become chaos, imagining trillions of objects. The scientists have found few solutions, but never something that we can see in the real world. If our Sun's gravity force is holding the entire solar system, why do we keep on finding more and more distant objects, even to a 15,000 million kilometer radius? Wouldn't that change all of our formulas? And why isn't the biggest closer and the smaller more distant? In Saturn's rings, it's clear this uneven distribution.
Wait a minute, we are not ready. If Newton's gravity is the mistake we are searching for, then thousands of formulas will be terribly affected. However, many are already proven to work here or there. Could it be that a piece of a formula is wrong and still give us some results?
If Newton's gravity is real, how is it possible the huge orbits of many comets with thousands of years distance apart, which massive object is holding them that we can't see?
I wish Newton was still here.
Or immaterial.
An immaterial agent.
Like the Big Bang with impossible events that we can't really observe. Or black holes with a tiny ball at the center with the mass of 1,000 suns. Dark matter, still not found.
You sometimes speak of gravity as essential and inherent to matter. Pray do not ascribe that notion to me, for the cause of gravity is what I do not pretend to know.
Okay, time to move on. In science, even if we have all of the evidence on the table, we're still not sure, because some things are facts and others are interpretations of them. Facts might be real, however, are we always giving them the correct interpretations? Well, we've nothing to lose. I'm not happy about this, but I will take it upon the challenge to forget gravity for a second, just for a second. Okay, before we go any further, let's have a closer look at his most famous equation, just to see what he was really up to. It's also a brilliant paradox. It says, if we accelerate matter, it will turn into energy. This has changed our world. But listen now, if we clear M, matter equals energy if we slow it down. It is here. I love this guy. And if we manage to slow down energy, energy will turn into matter. And even if we clear C, the same thing. We have to slow down something immaterial, so energy and matter will pop up. This now becomes an interesting challenge, more than I initially thought. Are we really going to discover here the way to slow down energies? Well, first of all, to explain why things fall down, we need different dimensions. This is for certain. We already know that density plays a role in moving things down or up. But how does multidimensional density alone hold the stars and planets in constant rotation? All these dimensions of different densities, they must be mixed up, entangled and combined. It seems that everything in reality is supported by different dimensions simultaneously. Maybe matter is made out of this complex combination. How many simultaneous dimensions are needed to maintain matter? Just like me right now with my solid hands and my immaterial emotions with far less density, and altogether, here I am. Have a look at all these famous physicists. Here is only the most reputed one. Perhaps more than 80% of modern physicists now agree that our reality must be comprised of multiple layers and dimensions. Today we use this idea of the multiverse. The real force moving the entire universe is not just a game of difference in density, but a game of differences in multidimensional densities. It's not easy to understand, but we might now be holding the secret key of our reality as we know it. Well, we must be cautious always with scientific declarations. So what can we say about the universe without breaking any rules? To be precise, maybe the strictest definition is that the universe is just a fun game between energy and time. I know you're on the side of energy because you are energy, and time to some extent is our enemy. Do you battle time, as I do? So the game is that energy has to resist time, but time doesn't start until energy moves. They right one another. A crazy paradox, a beautiful game. So energy is not stupid. To the contrary, it's more like a great architect full of pure ideas and creativity. Now, ask yourself, what is energy's strategy to escape from time? I'm not only talking about facial creams and good diets. So let me see. Motion, constant motion, and expansion, in creation, in generations, complexity, self-competitions. You see, absolute interdependence, and very importantly, saving and efficiency at all costs. The law of conservation. So energy and time, neither of these two players are real to us. They're not within our physical, tangible dimension. How can we create matter with invisible players? But what really is energy? Energy is just communication. Please keep this in mind. It communicates using only ripples, waves, just waves. But communication is not solid either. It's immaterial. Nothing seems to be concrete here. Ripples and waves are just a disturbance of the environment. So we need an environment first to be disturbed. It seems that this was Einstein's dream when he drew a space-time sheet. Let us listen to Einstein's voice again. What are these space-time sheets made of?
Everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy, this is physics.
So let's take Einstein's challenge on again to try to create matter using only a space-time sheet. It's a beautiful idea, the fundamental environment we are searching for. But of course, we have to visualize it in 3 dimensions. What is it made of? Again, nothing. It's just an environment, but it can help communications run through it. So it's made of ripples and waves alone. When the ripples move, a fundamental environment is formed, so the ripples can exist. What came first? The chicken or the egg? Energy or time? Waves or the environment? Please give me more paradoxes, because only paradoxes seem to be at the very core of reality as we know it. The genius of Einstein told us that this immaterial environment is not rigid, but it can curve and warp. This is absolutely brilliant.
However, space-time only warps with the presence of very heavy matter.
In the eclipse of 1919, everybody could see that light curved while passing near a big, massive object. Light can only travel straight, so that must be evidence of space-time structure warping. Everybody was very happy in those times. But now we consider other possible interpretations. Remember though, how problematic interpretations can be. So what is this? The light also warps while changing from one density to another. This is called refraction. Could it be that the eclipse of 1919 was showing us that near the Sun, space-time density is higher? The truth is, we do not know. The question could be though, to create matter, is space-time gradually concentrating MD density? We can't continue using matter to explain matter. Until when? Atoms, protons, quarks, gluons, gravitons, Higgs, strings, until when? Maybe this is why we still do not know what matter really is. So, can we warp Einstein's space-time sheet without the presence of matter? Can you trap energy in Einstein's space-time deformated sheet, concentrate so many waves until something solid emerges? Okay, it's time to get hands-on. We will try and build up this structure with invisible players. But first, think of Einstein's space-time sheet. It's not flat and motionless. Why and how do these irregularities take place? Here is where the MD density comes into play. Different concentrations of simple ripples and waves, the only force to move environments. Okay, so for the magic of motion, we need to think of contrasts, irregularities, and areas with more MD density and areas with less. Beautiful tides with peaks and valleys. So it's simple. We just need to distribute immaterial environments in different densities and magic, motion, and also temperatures. This is the famous picture of the cosmic microwave background. The sounds of the universe where clearly we can hear areas of different concentration of waves. Hot areas have lighter MD density, and cooler areas are relatively heavier. The universe is an immaterial environment, like currents in the depths, motion, action, and force. So let's get started with something simple, a home experiment. We'll look here at this tree. On the bottom, we have wood, crystal, and then sand. This is a solid reality, however, neutrinos can cross over easily. Then we have honey, a little bit less denser, washing up liquid, we have water, oil, and then at the top we have some air. This padlock will stop at the sand surface on a honey atmosphere. For pumpkin seeds, these should stop at the surface of the washing up liquid. Finally, this plastic cap should rest on the top of the oil. Newton's laws of motion are only based on 2 dimensions, but his formulas will change if we stay, for example, in a honey atmosphere. Whereas in a mercury atmosphere, I will not fall down, but instead would float up quickly. We've seen here the surfaces where the difference in pressure from either side creates the membrane. But here comes the big part, how to mix dimensions. If we increase density on a particular spot of any dimension, or reduce density, a contrast will happen and motion will begin. When this contrast reaches a critical level, the deformation will begin to mix into another level. We move to another dimension when we become too light or too heavy. However, a single shaking will not last. It's just to create tides and motion. All energy waves need constant fuel or they will inevitably decay and dissipate. Where is this intelligent inertia to our reality actually coming from? We need an intense and non-stop deformation to produce a spiral sucking at one dimension and moving it through to another. These might be similar to what we call black holes, swallowing from one side and squeezing and delivering into another side. Black holes can swallow not only one dimension, but perhaps many to squeeze and produce a unique point or spot. In fact, black holes are known in science as a strong deformation of the Einstein's space-time sheet. I've loved Newton's gravity since my childhood days. However, here we will try not to use matter. So no more singularities, please. Nothing like a very tiny ball with just a mass of 1,000 suns at the centre. Just Newton's gravity out of the equation and all things come into actual observation. Stephen Hawking was the first one to talk about the possibility of micro black holes in the vacuum of space. They are called quantum mechanical black holes. Many tried to follow him, as this will provide answers to so many questions. However, they gave up again because they thought matter must be the only force. So, if we take out gravity now, it seems very easy and useful to conceive micro black holes or other structures that act similarly to black holes in nature. Perhaps there are trillions of these immaterial formations within a single square millimetre. Also, we don't know much about the relativity of sizes. It could be that a huge black hole can squeeze into a tiny particle. Thinking in terms of multi-dimensions perhaps, a vast black hole is nourishing billions of particles at any one time. So this idea is called the holographic universe. In either way, it is a nice model because the spiral force manages to condense multi-dimensional densities down into a tip of its funnel. This is an interesting spot, but things do not end here.
Things can get out of a black hole, both to the outside and possibly to another universe.
If you remember, from the law of conservation, nothing is wasted, but the transformation of energies. Look at this beauty. This is called Einstein-Rosen bridges, or wormholes, because the deformation goes from one side through to another side, jumping out from one dimension to another. This is what we're searching for, but they're not made of matter. They are just a force created by the contrasts in density on a particular environment. Let's now go step by step. We will try to go slowly through 18 steps, completing all sequences until matter is created using only invisible players. This is a black hole structure, sucking up its environment. We need an intense and non-stop deformation to produce a spiral sucking at one dimension and moving it through to another, with a tip of highest density pre-matter. There is the membrane of the second dimension. Now let's turn it upside down. Now the tip of our black hole is like a dense pickaxe that's about to break through the membrane. All this will nearly happen at the speed of light. But hold it. Here is the membrane with a resistance similar to an elastic surface. But the power of a black hole sucking up its own environment, condensing it to the tip, is quite strong, even though it's just made of waves. Here we can see how the tip is invading and dragging the membrane in a spiral from beginning to end. Are you really ready now to break through into the next world? Okay, the membrane is broken, stretched apart, and now a jet is erupting into the new environment. A deformation of space-time with a high concentration of waves jumping into a new world. However, now this concentration is growing quickly suppressed and dispersed like a ball thrown into the air. The new environment density is slowing and dispersing and breaking expansion. So, the jet goes into a plate, a disk that falls down towards itself. Excellent. Now, this deformation force will reach the membrane again from where it is coming from. We have a hole in the middle from where the jet is still coming out. A black hole on the other dimension is erupting through it. Now we have an impact with the shape of a ring caused by the collision of the falling force upon the membrane. Similarly how a fountain jet would fall down to the surface, crashing it and splashing it. Here is a very interesting area. Astrophysics called it the accretion disk. Here, the collision upon the membrane builds up a high concentration of waves. The deformations are also very much compressed. If that is so, can we see evidence of this compression of energy with ring-shaped structures? Actually, we observe this structure all over the universe. Layers of disks, clouds of gases, matter that is not so dense. Also, jets coming out from invisible holes that suddenly vanish. We are not a single disk, but layers on rotation. Why? Does this indicate differences in interactions between MD densities? This new dimension density warps the jets like the wind separating the grain from the page. We see layers everywhere, all separated by differences in densities. This is our atmosphere. And here are the Van Allen radiation belts. Invisible magnetic fields reaching as far as thousands of kilometers thick. I am impressed. This is a real picture of an atom. So, like a mushroom fountain with many layers, the deformation of space-time strikes the membrane that separates both dimensions. This membrane over here, at the accretion disk, is already weakened with low density as the jet force has stretched it apart, easily breaking through and penetrating to the other side. What is on the other side of the membrane? It's home, the original dimension from where we come from. After a long journey, we have all changed in our interactions with different densities. This is crucial because it means a second look into your previous self. We have learned many lessons, heard stories from afar. When the new self meets the old, reflections, creating a feedback loop. This is the signature of intelligence. We're not the only intelligent thing in this universe. We observe intelligence everywhere. Intelligence requires reflection, the ability to learn from your experiences. Now the new self is facing the old, and what is there waiting on the other side? The black hole still, there with an immense force sucking up everything. A great amount of these deformations will be observed and dragged again back through into the wormhole. Look at this. We have created matter out of just space-time formations. A center spot reaches the highest concentration of waves thanks to the constant injections of at least 2 connected black holes. I really must admit, it's beautiful. It seems that this is what Einstein's equations were asking for. A space-time sphere where energy can run at its natural speed, stay in stillness, and increase its MD density over and over towards it. Honestly, it's beautiful. Actually, now I understand Einstein himself when he said,
Objects are not in space, but they are an extension of space itself.
Mathematicians call this structure a toroid. However, we will call it here a quantum toroid. According to Mark Planck, a quantum is like a solid membrane containing waves inside. So this is exactly what we've got here, a quantum toroid. So here we make it happen with an Einstein-Rosen bridge connecting 2 dimensions. I used to love linear mathematics, but here we need constant reflections, numbers coming back towards themselves, and of course, different dimensions.
There is no matter as such. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force which brings the particles of an atom to vibration. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter.
Now we have to solve another crucial problem, grouping. This is all about groups, interactions, relationships, and connections. How do quantum toroids group and interact with one another? Gatherings are an essential part of communications. Let's think about these deformations of space-time erupted by crashing dimensions. How many layers are there, and how far do they go? Maybe 3 or 4, perhaps millions, much further than we can guess. Do they cover millimeters, kilometers perhaps? Maybe we have to talk about it in light years. When 2 of the rings or layers cross over, deformations occur, creating new waves with varying MD densities and new currents of motion. How far do they reach to hold hands and share waves and deformations? We can observe vast magnetic fields spanning thousands of kilometers. So, how many dimensions are at play? Is it 2? We've been talking here about 2 dimensions for ease, but maybe there's 3, perhaps 6. There is most likely, depending on how we count, thousands or millions of dimensions acting at any one time to create a multi-dimensional quantum toroid. When these rings or arms find a balance, do they create a bigger and more complex structure? Are there quantum toroids inside quantum toroids? It must be. We observe similar structures across all scales. These are classic fractal shapes, mathematical patterns self-replicating throughout the scales. So in these rough waves of different densities, balance will find its way. Bigger membranes are formed. Inside protons, there are always 3 quarks on constant rotation. The interesting thing is that if you try to take a quark out, there will be a strong resistance to that. It's impossible to remove the quark because if you do, they immediately reappear within the proton. Is this compelling evidence that matter is the result of an invisible something from other dimensions, injecting constant energy? Matter is just the flow of these constant injections, and that's why we can also create virtual particles within a vacuum and they go fast again. Any chaos created will be equalized to balance by density force in a well-organized deep ocean, all absolutely interconnected where everything affects everything.
You pick up a flower on Earth and you move the farthest star.
We also see spinning and rotation within the cosmos. Are they following the space-time formation of gathering rings? This model can easily explain orbits and has no need of matter, simply following the structure of space-time. Look at this simulation of existing motions in our galaxy. How do they rotate? Are they really following the deformations of an invisible space-time environment? Is MD density the reason for these tides? As you can see, with this quantum toroid model, with its rings and arms, it illustrates nicely the orbits that we observe all around us. I must say, I'm very excited. Finally, we can explain matter without using matter. I do trust Einstein's formula, and I'm confident Newton ultimately would be proud of us. Thanks to space-time environments, multidimensional densities, and quantum toroid structure. There is a lot to do still. However, it is true that using this model, we find answers to many mysteries of our reality, such as the following classic experiments of quantum mechanics.
Particles sometimes behave like matter and other times like waves. Even the presence of an observer can make differences on this. Are particles surrounded by a deformation of space-time? 90% of atoms are empty space to us. Particles sometimes clump together in such a way that they behave simultaneously even if they are separated by a very large distance. Are they sharing dimensions? So it is the space-time dimension itself, the one that moves, dragging all of its attached creations. Even in total vacuum, particles can still appear, showing that there is something hidden to us in other layers of reality. Particles appear and disappear like bubbles on a rough tide. Quantum foam. Is this evidence that matter is just the result of deformation of space-time? Nothing but the condensation of immaterial environment?
And what about the expansion of the universe? Thanks to the Doppler effect, we can clearly observe that everything's moving away at a constant acceleration, even faster than the speed of light. I don't know. I hope you agree with me because I don't see any real possibilities to expand beyond nothingness on eternal linearity. It makes more sense to me that we are expanding over a curvature. Furthermore, in reality, if we reverse this expansion, it will not reach a single point. This means that by reversing expansion, it will reach all of us at precisely the same time, to all points within the universe, as an observer would reach the same conclusion regardless of their location within the universe. Only a space-time spherical deformation can explain this fact. The contrast in MD density warps the space-time roads. So whatever goes out there comes back in over here. Again, this is the only solution to achieve intelligence.
Throwing particles against an impenetrable barrier, they can still appear at the other side. Are particles at the edge of different dimensions and that's why they come and go? All particles show a constant spinning, even neutrons without any charge. However, they can spin up or down, and even up-down at the same time. The vibration and the spinning is the real shape of the particle. Is this evidence of a whirlpool's force? Are whirlpools not an immaterial environmental deformation?
So why does the universe like creating matter? Well, thinking about the strategies of energy in the game against time, matter is the best way to stop time, to make it slow motion. And also, matter is the best idea to retain memories. And with memories, intelligence, reflections, creations are all possible. It seems that we are the greatest invention of energy against time, the best so far. Before, we considered matter as something flat, brainless and silly in a way. However, now we understand matter to be highly intelligent. Every single piece is totally connected to a complex network of different dimensions, moving by the force of contrasts in MD density, allowing information to run precisely through space-time formations of rings and arms. Quantum toroids, spheres with the ability to slow down and retain energy in constant reflection. These are cells duplicating, adding mass out of nothing from inside out. Here we can see evidence of matter coming from dimensions that we cannot see because they might be of a very low density. Look how an environment gets built up without anything around. Are they gradual space-time deformations? That is why the entire universe is concentrating here. We are like the brain of God, with retentions, memories, reflections, all thanks to being at the very core of many different dimensions. Finally, a scientific model that's inclusive of me and you, our emotions, our feelings on the same table together with protons and stars. In fact, we humans are real evidence like any other piece of reality. We have still a lot to unravel. Mysteries will never end, and that, honestly, makes me very happy.